Interested in exploring the socio-cultural determinants of de novo versus the Alio Entry, my co-author Michael Lenox of the Darden School at the University of Virginia and myself were interested in understanding two interrelated questions. The first one was looking at what drives entry into emerging industries for startups versus existing incumbent firms. Are there different drivers for these two different types of entrants? Because we know emerging industries are made up of both. And the second one was understanding what drives entry into emerging green industries that offer some kind of environmental benefit, an environmentally preferable product. Examples would be things like organic foods, solar energy, and in our case, green building, which is about lessening the environmental impacts of the built environment. And so we were really interested in those questions, and when we gathered our data and tested, we found some pretty interesting differences between the drivers of entry for different types of firms. We found that for startup firms, the socio-cultural environment, defined as the unwritten rules of the game, and particularly activity by social movement organizations promoting the industry and by social norms or regional beliefs about the normative legitimacy of the industry, were strong determinants and drivers of entry by new startup firms. However, they had literally zero significant effect on entry by incumbent existing firms. On the other hand, the economic conditions, in our case, adoption of green building in the industry, and the regulatory conditions, in our case, incentives and policies put in place to encourage green building, had a strong, significant predictive relationship with entry by the incumbent firms that were coming in, already existing construction firms diversifying into green building, but no impact whatsoever on entry by the de novo firms, the startups. So it begs the question, why would there be differences so strong between the drivers of entry by incumbent versus startup firms? And that's what our paper is about. Normally, as business school faculty, we would advise our would-be entrepreneurs to wait until the economics are right, wait until a policy comes into place, and to look for those opportunities. That might be exactly the factors that incumbent existing firms are going to latch onto when they decide to enter an industry. And we know from the organizational ecology literature that at the beginning of an emergent industry, the incumbent firms have far greater resources and are often able to squash out newcomers. So rather than focusing on those factors, it could imply that if you're in an industry such as green building, in which there are implications beyond the economic and regulatory implications, these normative, environmental implications to the industry, you might be better off as a startup latching onto that activity of adjacent social movements as well as the social norms in a region, because if you are aware of those aspects and embedded in them, it's likely that your incumbent firms in competition are not going to pay attention, thus giving you a short window of advantage. More broadly speaking, we think that this research has some really interesting implications for understanding the emergence of environmentally relevant industries. So it suggests that at the early stages of environmentally relevant industries, before the economics actually are in place, before the policies are in place, a critical determinant of entering these industries is going to be the factors of social movement activity as well as social norms. Now, there's been previous studies that have talked about the role of social movements in the wind industry, for example, of Sierra Club specifically helping the wind industry take off. But we went beyond that to the more diffuse, less understood social norms. And it could be that cultural changes really are the precursor to getting those entrepreneurial startups, that Schumpeterian creative destruction that we expect to see happen, and getting those new entrants to come into the field.